Hey everybody, I wanted to show some of the new features in Photoshop CC 2014, and I want to use my own assets that I shot just to kind of prove that this stuff actually does work. The first thing about Photoshop CC 2014 is that oddly enough, when you install it, your old version still remains. So if you go and look, you'll see you have Photoshop CC and then Photoshop CC 2014. And then the non-64-bit variant is still there as well. You can uninstall these without a problem. Apparently, CC 2014 is a complete rebuild of Photoshop, so they needed to just reinstall it completely rather than patch it. So that's what's going on there. You'll notice other things, same thing. Media Encoder 2014 is there as well as CC. Premiere Pro, same thing. So let's get into some of the new stuff. The first thing I wanted to show was the new blur features in Photoshop CC 2014. One of them is spin blur, and obviously the first thing people are going to do with this, most likely, is make wheels spin. So let's go ahead and take this image I shot of this car, and we'll make just the rear tire spin like it's doing a burnout. And the first thing I want to do actually is convert this to a smart object by right-clicking. That way I can go back and re-edit any of these blur effects I add to the image. So we'll do that. Then if we go to Filter, Blur Gallery, you'll find you have this new spin blur. Hit that. And we can drag the spin blur on the area of the image we want to blur. We'll just grab that. We can resize it. Like that. And then the actual amount of blur, you can grab this little slider here, crank it up. And you can see immediately you've got a spinning tire. Pretty cool. And we'll just push enter. And Photoshop will chew on that for a bit. And there we go. We've got a tire spinning. Pretty neat. I went ahead and went on the internet and found a shot of some smoke. So you can add some smoke in here and bam, you've got a car doing a burnout. Pretty cool. That's a spin blur. And again, if this is a smart filter, you can go in and re-edit it if you want to. Just double click. Here's all of your stuff up here. You can grab it and resize it. If you wanted to, say, make the front tire spin for some reason, if you hold Control and Alt together and drag it, it actually copies the blur. You can apply the same exact blur to the front. Pretty cool. So there you go. So that's spin blur. Pretty simple, but pretty cool. The next one is path blur. And path blur is pretty cool. Let's take this image. Same thing here. We'll right-click, convert to smart object. And again, go to Filter, Blur Gallery, and Path Blur. And Path Blur allows you to create a blur on a kind of a straight line. So we'll just drag this down here. You can actually curve the blur as well if you want. You can see it's curving here, but we'll just do a straight line. Now you can do some pretty cool stuff here. The end of the blur could actually be not blurred at all if you want. So you could actually say, okay, well, let's take the blur out of the end and just have the blur at the back. Okay. You can edit the blur shapes. You can drag it around like that. So you can kind of see what can be done with this already. Now the next thing that they've added is in the fonts. So if we turn this on, and let's say we want to change the font here. If we go into fonts, we go into the type tool. One of the coolest things that I've seen is if you open up this dialog and start dragging down, they have added previews for your fonts. So you can see as I click around, all the fonts I'm choosing in the dialog over here are previewing in my actual image. That's very cool. Now another new thing is if you want, Creative Cloud includes something called typekit. And typekit is a bunch of fonts, but they're calling it thousands of dollars worth of fonts that are available to you with your subscription. So you hit that. And you're brought into Adobe Typekit. You can choose any of these fonts. You can just pick one and say, you know what, I want to use that font. Sync it. Okay. 4 fonts were added. If I go back, there they are, just like that. So Adobe takes care of all that stuff for you in the background, just installing the fonts once you browse to them. Very cool stuff. So let's put this back to the font I was using initially. This was Zalonium, I believe. Okay. Now another cool thing that they've added is if you hold Control and you're in the Move tool, Control gives you precise measurements for where each individual layer sits on your composition. So if I was to duplicate this a few times, let's just grab it. And if I start to move this down, a couple of cool things happen. One is that it's going to snap to the edge here. And let's grab another one. Now you'll notice that it's snapping to the center as well. So they've added a bunch of stuff in here for really easily kind of distributing layers in a concise way. Okay, so let's move all these layers up. And then I'll grab one. And you can see it snaps. So if I try to distribute these so that they're even, if I grab one of these layers and start dragging it, you'll see it snaps to where it's saying, okay, well, at this point it's evenly distributed between the two layers below it. So let's grab this layer and do the same thing. That layer. And it snaps. So it gives you a lot of precise control over font or layer distribution. It's very nice. And again, if you hold Control and drag around, you'll see that it tells you exactly how far away each of these elements are from each other. That's very cool. All right, another new feature is content aware with color adaptation. So let's open up a new image here. Okay, so this image here, if you were to use the old, let's use the patch tool. All right, and make sure adaptation is turned to 0, and we'll show you what happens here. Let's say I take this part of the image, and I want to put it, or I want to replace it with this part of the wall over here, and I just say, okay, do it. All right, let's hide that. It doesn't look very realistic at all. So let's undo that. And this time we'll use some adaptation. So let's say I want this be replaced with this area over here. Okay. So let's change this to maybe a 5 or a 6. Or even 10. Now you can see that when I do that, you can see it's adapting the color of the area I've selected as well as the image. So now, if we hide that, the marching ants, you can see it really did a really nice job of matching that color area. Pretty much seamless. Very nice. Let's do that again real quick. So I want this area to be replaced with this area. Very nice. Adaptation is cranked up to 10. It did a nice job of adapting the colors. Looks great. The next new feature is called Focus Area Selection. So what I'd like to do is, let me actually delete this mask so we can start over from scratch. All right. I want that logo to be behind her. Obviously right now it's in front of her, but I'd like to have it behind her. So what I need to do is make a mask, obviously. This is a nice image because she's in focus, the background's out of focus. So Photoshop should be able to determine what's in focus, what's out of focus, and give me a brand new mask out of that area. So let's give it a shot. I've kind of sandwiched these two images, or I've sandwiched the logo between this image. So I'll go to the top image, and I'll say Select Focus Area. All right. Now Photoshop's going to sort of chew on this a bit. All right, so off the bat, it didn't quite get what I want, but I have some options in here. Let's change the in focus range. Crank it up a little bit. Okay, so you can see it's already doing a pretty good job. You know, obviously the trick with selections is always hair, but we can get into that in a second. Now another cool thing is what you're going to output this to. Do you want to output to just a selection of marching ants, or do you want to output it to a new layer mask, or an entirely new layer, or a new layer with layer mask? We're going to do a new layer mask, so we'll choose that. And next what we're going to do is, there's some areas that it actually has chosen that we don't want it to choose. So let's resize my brush here and say, all right, look, keep that, you know, keep that. So you can tell it, you know, if it selects something you don't want it to select, just paint it back in. Now let's go in here and let's refine the edge. Okay. This is the refine mask that has been in Photoshop for a while, but now it's built into this focus area selection tool. Let's turn on Smart Radius. And let's zoom in a little bit here. And we'll start to paint back in the areas that we'd like it to. Okay, so you can see it's starting to grab these areas and kind of refine that mask a little bit. And that's what we want. Go up here, same thing here, grab her hair, just go around the edges here and say, all right, look, just clean that up a little bit for me. And Photoshop's doing that for me now. And this will output a mask, which, as you guys probably know, is non-destructive. We can always paint things back in even after we've done this, which is nice. And then down here as well, grab that. And we'll call it good here in a second. And clean this up a little bit here too. Right. Okay. That's pretty good. So let's say okay to that. All right. Let's turn our logo back on. And as you can see, now it's properly behind our head. We'll zoom in. And you can see it's actually masked out individual hairs based on focus area. Very cool. Very nice. All right, so the last thing I wanted to show in Photoshop is packaging. And packaging is an option that was available in After Effects, where it would basically say, all right, you have a bunch of these assets in this project, and what I want you to do is package everything up into one folder so I can send it off to somebody else to work on it, rather than maybe there's a bunch of assets that are on a network drive that only I have access to. What's going to happen is that Photoshop is going to gather all these assets up, put them into one folder so I can even zip that folder if I want, and Dropbox it to somebody, email it to somebody, and say, here's all the stuff I used. There you go. So what we do is, File, let's do a Place Linked. Let's put this Ford logo in here, for whatever reason. All right. Yeah, looks pretty good. We'll save this. Now what we're going to do is package. Okay. Let's go ahead and put it in this MMUG folder. Let's make a new folder. We'll call it packaged. Okay. It's packaging it up for me. Let's go take a look and see what it looks like. So here's the actual PSD, and here are my links, PNG file, and the Ford logo file. Everything's there. There you go. Good to go. So those are a few of the new features in Photoshop CC 2014. There's some other new stuff, but I thought those were the most impressive things I've seen so far. So I hope this helped you guys. Thanks for watching.